Avus. The Avus track, located in Germany's capital city Berlin, only hosted one Grand Prix in 1959. However, its layout remains one of the weirdest Formula One had ever seen. The track only features 4 corners, a tight hairpin as turn 1, 2 fast kinks as turn 2 and 4, and another hairpin connecting the two. That second hairpin is famously known for having a banking of 43.6 degrees. Thanks to simulation games, we know that modern F1 cars would still need around 1.5 minutes around this track. Why, you may ask? Because the straights are almost 4 kilometers long each. Even if Formula One only visited this one kind of a racetrack just once in its history, the track held racing events until 1998. Due to safety concerns, they got rid of the banking in 1967, and chicanes were added in the last years of its existence. The track lengths were also reduced during the 1990s. Tony Brooks, who won the F1 event in 1959, set an average speed of 230 km per hour, just 20 km per hour short of Verstappen's record set in this year's Italian Grand Prix. Nordschleife. We stay in Germany for our next entry on the list, the infamous Nordschleife. Nicknamed the Green Hell by Jackie Stewart, this circuit located in the German Eifel region is probably one of the best known racetracks in the world. While nowadays GT3 cars take turns in tackling the hardest racetrack in history, Formula One hosted several Grand Prix until the 1970s. During the early years of Formula One, safety features were non-existent. Most racetracks in Europe were either aircraft runways or street circuits. The Nordschleife was different, as this track is completely man-made, handcrafted into nature in one of Germany's most beautiful landscapes. The version we know today is still 20.8 kilometers long, slightly shorter than the version F1 actually raced on from 1951 until 1976. Niki Lauda's fiery crash then proof that the circuit is not suitable for F1 anymore. With several crests, tight turns, bumpy surface, and a high possibility of fog and changing weather conditions, the Nordschleife remains as one of the craziest tracks F1 ever raced on. Pescara. Now, if you thought the Nordschleife was long with around 21 kilometers, wait till you hear about the Pescara. This 25.8 kilometer long racetrack hosted only a single Grand Prix in the 1957 season. Located around the city of Pescara, the track only consisted of local streets. Starting with a more technical part connecting a few villages, the second half of the lap only consists of never-ending straights, one 90-degree corner and a chicane, before the pit entry finishes off the lap. Sir Stirling Moss won the Grand Prix consisting of 18 laps or 465 kilometers in total. During that race, Jack Brabham ran out of fuel but pitted at a local gas station next to the track. The Pescara circuit held its last event just a few years later in 1961. Baku City Circuit. Weird racetracks are almost only a thing of the past, even though circuits like Valencia or Singapore could be classified as unusual. The only track on the 2025 F1 calendar that truly baffles me is Baku. Consisting of long straights for most parts, Baku is the complete opposite of a typical street track. Cars run low downforce setups and drivers actually have the space to go 2 or even 3 wide through most parts of the track. But then there is an infamous castle section, a tight slow part next to the old castle of Baku with zero room for error. This part of the track also bends F1's rulebook as it's too tight for the regulations. The weirdness of the Baku City Circuit is also highlighted in the most memorable races. 2017, 2018 and 2021 saw a lot of drama and exciting racing, while many other ventures to Azerbaijan's capital brought us absolute snooze fest. In 2025, Baku left us speechless with the longest qualifying ever, recording 6 red flags after crashes from various drivers, including championship leader Oscar Piastri. Monza. Another track still in use today is Monza, but while the layout is slightly unusual, this is not the point in this video. From 1955 until 1961, Formula One ran a different layout around the Temple of Speed on 4 different occasions. This layout connected both the normal Monza layout we know today, just without the chicanes as they were added later, and the oval with a steep baking. The start-finish straight was split into 2 lanes via cones to make this possible. After completing a lap around the classic layout, cars stay to the inside after the parabolica turn and turn into the oval just a few hundred meters before the modern turn 1. From there, they followed the oval and crossed the track with the bridge that's located on the second DRS straight just in front of the Ascari chicane. After exiting the oval, the cars are back on the left track of the circuit. This configuration is truly special and deserves a place on the list of F1's weirdest tracks ever. Indianapolis. Most of you probably know that F1 raced here, but we're not talking about the track that was used during the 2000s. In the first 11 years of the championship, the Indianapolis 500, yes, the IndyCar event, was actually part of the Formula One race calendar. However, the crossover between the series was minimal. No driver who scored points in the Indy 500 went on to score a point in a traditional F1 Grand Prix. Two-time F1 champion Alberto Ascari is one of the few F1 drivers who took part in the event, with most European drivers electing to skip the race entirely. This piece of F1 history leaves Indianapolis as the only oval racetrack that was ever part of F1's calendar. Caesar's Palace. In 2023, Formula One finally returned to Las Vegas. Even though the track kinda looks like a lid on its back, the circuit is way better than F1's first stint here. In 1981 and 1982, Formula One hosted the Las Vegas Grand Prix on the Caesars Palace Grand Prix circuit, which was nothing else than a glorified parking lot. The track was literally built in the parking facilities of the Caesars Palace Hotel and Casino, giving the track its name. The layout was horrendous, a completely flat track with a total of 14 turns. Apart from the 90 degrees turn 14 and the left kinks of 11, 12 and 13, the track only consisted of hairpins or hairpin-like slow-speed turns. The heat of the Nevada desert added to the awful atmosphere that this place created. Even though it hosted the season finale on both occasions, the only things fans remember about Caesars Palace is how awful it was. Dallas. We stay in the USA for our next entry on the list, the Dallas Street Circuit, only part of the F1 calendar in 1984. It's another failed attempt to bring F1 to America in the 1980s. Even though the track was quite fast for a street circuit at the time, there's almost nothing positive to say about it. The Can-Am race the day before tore up the track's surface. Repaving didn't work, leading to several problems on race day. Many drivers crashed out, including Alain Prost and Ayrton Senna. Only 8 drivers were classified, including Nigel Mansell, who collapsed while trying to push his Lotus over the line on the last lap. While the layout looks okay for an old street track, the track felt lifeless and had nothing to offer. It has a weird mix of sharp, slow corners and was hated by the drivers for the bumpy surface. And with the asphalt breaking under the heat, this track really is one of the weirdest of them all. Zeltweg. Back to a track with one of the strangest layouts of all time. Located just 2 kilometers away from Spielberg, Zeltweg hosted the first 2 Austrian Grand Prix in Formula One history. However, the first race in 1963 didn't count towards the championship. So speaking from official statistics, Zeltweg just hosted 1 Grand Prix in 1964. The track consists of just 4 corners, showing many similarities to the Avus circuit at the beginning of the video. Like it was done many times back in the day, the circuit was built on an old military airfield, just like Silverstone. Officially, F1 never returned due to the bumpy surface, but I'm pretty sure the layout also played a big part in the decision. Bahrain Oval. During the 2020 season, F1 was in desperate needs to fill their calendar due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Multiple circuits therefore got to host more than one race, with Bahrain being one of them. Since racing on the same track over and over again is not the most entertaining thing ever, the officials had an idea. What if we use another layout for the second event, the Sakir Grand Prix? Since the longer endurance layout used in the 2010 Bahrain Grand Prix was neither a driver nor a fan favourite, the much shorter, almost oval-like version of the circuit was used. On this layout, the entire infield of the Manama circuit gets skipped. Instead, cars turn left after turn 4, went through the fast kink of turn 7 before entering a slower chicane. A full throttle bend then brings the cars back onto the last sector of the Grand Prix layout. This version is only 3.5 kilometers long, so the race went over a distance of 87 laps. The lap times were under a minute, with Valtteri Bottas qualifying on pole with a record-breaking 0:53.377 seconds. The race itself became a classic, with Sergio Perez taking his first ever Grand Prix win. The layout, however, never returned. Spa 1994. I guess you wouldn't expect to hear Spa-Francorchamps on this list, did you? However, during the 1994 season, F1 made a few strange modifications at 4 different tracks, following the dark weekend of Imola, where both Roland Ratzenberger and Ayrton Senna lost their lives. The weirdest change came at Belgium, where Formula One decided to put a chicane into the Eau Rouge Raidillon complex, turning the most iconic corner in F1 into a slow, boring uphill section. Thankfully, the change was reverted for 1995, as safety improvements elsewhere brought the necessary changes. Roskilde Ring. Stirling Moss called this the strangest racetrack he'd ever raced on, the same Stirling Moss who raced at Pescara and Avus. Roskilde Ring is located in Denmark. The track is literally built into a gravel pit, leading to a natural banking from the outside corners. F1 raced here in 1961 and 1962, but none of these races counted towards the championship. The original layout was only 600 meters long. After the addition of another loop, the track length grew to 1.4 kilometers or 0.87 miles. This is way shorter than all usual F1 tracks, and looking at the layout, you can see that the track features no real straight. Sir Stirling Moss won the event in 1961, while the second F1 race in 1962 was won by three-time Formula 1 champion Jack Brabham. What I find hilarious, according to Wikipedia, Lucien Bianchi, great uncle of Jules Bianchi, withdrew because he had no car. I guess it was because his car was damaged, but I love the image of him arriving at the track and realising he travelled there without a race car. And that concludes the list of the weirdest F1 tracks ever. Here I have another interesting video for you. Watch that one next if you're interested in the history of Formula 1. Have fun, and I'll see you soon.